let's jump in. I want to introduce our guest speaker today, Katie Linford. Hi, Katie. You're on.
Thanks, Shane. I am really excited to be here today to talk to everybody about B2B CDPs. So let's dive in. Why are we even having this conversation? What is going on that we even need something like CDPs? What's happening in the market? So firstly is we have a lot of great technology that can enable decisioning and automation for next best action, great things like that. That doesn't happen without good data. Next, B2B customers are really demanding better buying experience. Whether you're a professional buyer or you're buying something for your personal life, you are a consumer. And B2B audiences and customers are really starting to demand that great buying experience. And because of data depreciation, we're seeing an increase on the reliance for this first party data and improving the quality there. So getting that as much data about that customer as you can into a single place is going to be even more critical. Last but not least, we have to mention the pandemic. So with the change to digital and this huge shift that we felt in the last year and a half, even more so on the B2B side, we really need this data again to support these engagements. The buying journey for B2B has changed significantly in the past year and a half, and you're not getting as many of those face-to-face engagements. So having a way to support digital is more critical than ever. And even knowing all of this, data continues to be a big challenge for marketers. So in a recent survey we did, we asked, what are the biggest challenges to achieving your marketing goals? Changing economic conditions is still the top of every list, but data took the place of 2 and 3. So what we're hearing and what we're seeing is that marketers don't have the quality of data that they want. They don't have the depth of the data that they want. They don't have the access to the data that they want. And all of these things are essential for, again, providing those great customer experiences. So CDPs are really a classic software story. Right, so all of this comes down to unifying this data, getting the good information that we need about our customers, and delivering the experiences that they are expecting. In the not so distant past, your blueprint for accessing data and analytics may have looked something like this. And honestly, I have worked at companies where it would have been great to have it look this good. Everything was siloed. And really the best you could ask for was that there was some automation in moving from one system to the next. And we started to get smarter about, our data. And it started to look more like this, where there were more integrations and looking kind of at this single source of truth through Salesforce automation. And we improved our methodology a little bit, but this has a very high LOE. It's a lot of manual work. It's a lot of overhead, and it really lacks the efficiency that marketers need to be timely in the execution of their campaigns. So in comes CDP, and what CDPs have done are packaged together the functionality that's needed to, again, get this data and these insights into a piece of packaged technology. So we're diving into the different types of CDPs. So on the left in the light gray box, we have the internally developed. So these are the build it your own homegrown system. So some of the nice things here, unlimited scope. You can really build this to be what you want it to be. Some of the disadvantages, unlimited scope, which tends to lead to scope creep, and poor prioritization. And while these aren't going to have licensing fees and things like that, they are extremely expensive. The level of effort and the number of resources and the dedication that it takes to not only build technology like this, but to support it, maintain it, and enhance it is significant. So the companies that we see that are doing this are big enterprise companies with big data management and IT teams that are really mature, and that they have a culture and a track record for building their own tools. Now on the right, the two columns, we have the packaged CDPs. So these come in two different flavors. So the first, starting in the middle column, are the embedded CDPs. And this is getting CDP functionality as part of another marketing platform, such as ABM. So the nice thing about these is that you get more functionality in a single tool. So it can be a bit disruptive when you're looking at bringing new technologies into your ecosystem. The companies that we're seeing that are buying these tend to be the kind of medium size, a bit early in the data maturity stage. And they are really looking for a way to start working with their data and engaging with it to get the efficiency that they can from it, as well as not have to deal with as many integrations and different tools. And on the far right, we have the standalone CDPs. So these are, as the name says, standalone. So they are offered as just a CDP. They are channel agnostic, which is great because they have so many different ways to connect to data sources and delivery systems that you may need. And the companies that we see that are looking at these CDPs are more kind of mid to large size with, kind of a bit more mature data management and data practices, and that are looking to really give marketing the depth and access to the data that they need and still be able to have flexibility in their delivery systems. So why CDPs? What do customers get out of it? And we have talked to quite a few, and I've consolidated here the primary use cases and the results that our the customers of the CDPs saw. So firstly, of course, bringing together the data, getting it clean, getting it from all of these different locations, and creating a single source of truth that marketers can have direct access to get the data that they need. And when we say single source of truth, we're really talking about not rip out every other data source that you have and just have a CDP. We're talking about for marketing, the one place where all of the data that they need comes together, or they can access it and work with it and get what they need from it. Doing this through the CDP and creating this kind of persistent repository is giving marketers efficiency gains, since they're not trying to clean data in its originating sources or trying more likely to get the other teams who own the data in the originating sources to make sure that it's clean and deduped. So all this data that's being collected and put together gives marketers the power to capture and track anonymous behavior and then tie it to a known user when the user reveals themselves. And again, this has again become more and more important as we prepare for data depreciation. And not only are marketers getting better data, but the CDPs are more easily enabling the creation of audiences and segments on which they can activate. And this has really greatly reduced the program execution timeline and given marketing a lot of efficiency there. The learnings and the insights that marketers can pull from the CDPs about the customer journey and about how customers are engaging with them allows marketing to pull much more comprehensive reports and get better marketing attribution. which is essential for marketing to show value. And finally, having consent and preference management as part of the system, where you are really managing the core customer data for marketing and looking at the audience and segmentation and looking at how to engage with clients, is really increases the efficiency and reduce risks, because the customers have already told us how they want to engage with us, and having all that information in the single place, again, efficiency and reduce risk, which is always a good thing. So all this sounds great. CDPs, they sound great, but they're still kind of new. Are CDPs just a fad? No, they are absolutely here to stay. And in a recent survey, we asked organizations, what are the technologies that they are planning on adopting to provide and support customer insights? And the number one choice was CDPs. And 91% of those we surveyed are either adopting or planning to adopt CDPs. So these are not going anywhere. And we see this reflected in the growth of the vendor landscape as well. So on the left, we have the CDP vendors who we looked at in the new wave in 2019. And on the right, the CDP vendors from the most recent new tech. And as you can see, these have almost doubled. We're seeing more and more vendors start engaging and looking into this landscape. Now we're seeing growth in lots of different areas. Where an interesting trend is the B2B and B2C offerings that vendors are focusing on. Another interesting point is marketing cloud vendors have now gotten into the CDP space. And as you know, with these big vendors, excuse me, they often wait to see how a technology category will play out, whether it's something that the market looks like it will grow in, the customers are engaging with, that they're seeing a need. And in the past 2 years, we have seen Adobe, Oracle, and Salesforce both provide CDP offering. So let's take a look at the most recent new wave, which was focused on standalone B2B CDP vendors. So a bit of a review, since we did kind of look at the CDP landscape earlier, but here is the official definition for standalone CDP as we defined it in the new wave. So firstly, obviously, must unify first and third party customer data. So again, this gets to creating this persistent store, the single source of truth for marketers that they have easy access to. It must have advanced analytics to support the audience building, the segmentation, journey orchestration, and the reporting that marketing needs. And lastly, it must be sold as a discrete offering, so not part of another application. And apologies in advance here for the eye chart, but this is the primary evaluation criteria that we looked at for the new wave. So touching on a few points here, I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but first and foremost, deduping, cleansing, normalizing, creating that persistent store. For B2B vendors, one of the important aspects here is lead to account matching, as well as augmentation of third-party data. Both of those things are extremely important for B2B companies to get the robust data that they need. So making sure that those integrations for the third-party data is easy to get either through a native integration or a marketplace. And of course, the consent data can be tracked. Identity resolution is hugely important. Again, creating this persistent store for not only the contact level, but the account and the buying group, which is key for our next item, activation and alerts. So for B2B, activating and engaging with our clients, looking at how we engage with them, when we engage with them, is having that context of the buying group and of the full account is essential for making sure that we are marketing to the right people in the right ways. And if you're like me, you're probably interrupt driven. So having alerts that where we can get notified about when we're seeing an audience engage in the way that we're looking for, so we can continue to move them down the program or the campaign path is essential. One of the areas that is newer and that we see as an opportunity for growth across the landscape is AI and ML decisioning. So this is something that can be really beneficial to marketers to be able to let the CDP really manage and run much more of this, based on what it's learning about the customers. And again, reporting, being able to get this cohesive information, all of this data that we have about our clients coming into one place is essential for marketing attribution and showing value. And of course, integrations. We've got to have the data. We've got to have it both move to and from our data sources as we need. So the wave. All right. So here is an overview of how the vendors that we looked at landed in the wave. And the things that we saw that were really key and that were differentiators for our leaders was that they had the strongest offering in data integration and unification. So this was not only more accurate, but it was really easy for the marketers to use. They also had really robust identity resolution and unified profiles, which is essential to get that really clear understanding of who the customer is, the account, the buying group, all the information that's needed for those program activations. And then the integrations were a broad offering that were easy to use. So finally, beyond the basics, beyond the unification, the persistent store of the data, what are the 5 characteristics of the ideal B2B CDP? Firstly, augmentation of the data. Again, this is something that is really important to B2B companies to make sure that they have a more holistic view of who their client is. So engaging with the CDP that enables that augmentation easily is essential. Being channel agnostic is also very important. So we want the data layers and those foundational layers in our tech stack to be persistent, to be important, to not change as frequently as things like our delivery layer, which needs to change with the needs of our clients. So having a CDP that is stable and channel agnostic, so as your delivery mechanisms change, it can easily sync up to and adapt to meet those new delivery mechanisms. It needs to be very accessible for marketers. It needs to be easy to use. It needs to have a good interface. It needs to not be targeted at data science tools. This is something that is a really powerful tool for marketers, and they need to be able to use it really easily. Having robust reporting out of the box is another big one. This is an area where we also see some opportunity for vendors in the CDP technology category to really make some big gains for marketing, so they can get the reporting that they need real time on the things that are important to them without having to go to their data team. And finally, has to have B2B profiles. You sell to a group. Buying groups are essential, and knowing who they are is essential for really getting those campaigns and programs and customer engagement right for your B2B customers.
Okay, so I've got a couple questions for you here. So, we'll do the first one. I think this one you can hit pretty well. It's from a guest, and they want to know, how do they know if they need a CDP?
That's a good question. The first thing I would look at is, how are you accessing your marketing data? And if your response is, well, we don't have marketing data, that's a good indicator. So how are you accessing this, all of this data that marketing needs about the customer? And is it easy to get to? Is it complete? Are you trying to pull data from multiple sources to try and put together this holistic picture? If you're in that space where it's very manual, it's a struggle, you find yourself waiting on other teams to get information, to get insights, to get access to the data that you need, a CDP might be a really good solution for you.
So the question is, this person, let's see, I'll paraphrase. I've heard different things about what CDPs do. Some people have said CDPs are more just data management and glorified MDM, which would be master data management, to clear up some acronyms. And others have talked about it only being more around things like account-based marketing intent. How does Leadspace look at what CDPs do? Hey, that's a good question. And I think this gets to where the market for CDPs is, while we've been around a while, the market is still really evolving. And so I think there's a lot of different types of solutions. And this is where it's important to do your own research and talk to people or companies that do use CDPs. I think that to the research that Katie shared, there are at least different ways that Forrest looks at. I think when we look at the areas that you mentioned specifically, so historically, probably a lot of the CDP market did have a lot of base in things like data integration and data enrichment, and that's definitely a big important part of what CDPs do. I do think, though, that how the market's evolved, and I know this is very common for us, is we work in conjunction with your data infrastructure. So it's really common for us to work with MDM products or your data warehouse, whatever it is you're using, because what we're doing is really taking the data and making it more actionable, more usable, and we really are kind of starting with the data enrichment aspect and then going up. And so my first part to that would be, CDPs are way more than data storage, which was something we mentioned earlier. We take the data and we make it more actionable, understandable, so that you can drive and hopefully have more efficient sales and marketing processes. Which gets me to the second part, which is talking about intent and account-based marketing. That is a super important part of what CDPs do. Now, in the market, there are people that focus specifically on ABM, or account-based marketing, to explain that acronym. And I think it's got a lot of classic parts of what marketing automation's really been built around. If you go back to the start of marketing automation, it did have a lot of things driven from the contacts and accounts, and that's driven through to some great ABM solutions that are out there. As far as CDPs, a standalone CDP for business to business like Leadspace or others is going to do account-based marketing. However, for example, what we do that's different is that this is where that open and agnostic data platform comes in. We do have our own capabilities, our own data, our own intent capabilities, but we'll let you plug in whatever you want. So we have several ABM specialists that have their own intent models, and we can plug those in to drive our solution. So I think the long explanation is that there's a lot of different views. It's still an emerging market, but what I think the big expectation is, and what you're seeing the earlier adopters do, is that they're expecting the CDP to be that unification layer that works across these different complex use cases, all the way from data management, enrichment, through the things like account-based marketing, activation, and then analytics, and provide the entire lifecycle capabilities. So I hope that helps. And then for a time, I got one more, and this one's going to be for you, Katie. What are some of the challenges for implementing and integrating a CDP?
First one, I would say, and this is true for any technology, is simply not being ready. A CDP is a great investment, and like any good investment, any technology that you bring in, if you're not prepared as an organization to adopt the technology, you're not going to get the value out of it that you need. So making sure that everybody's aligned, everybody is clear on what it means, what it does, excuse me, and that your teams are prepared to, learn the technology, engage with it, figure out how you're going to use it, make sure you have your KPIs and objectives set up ahead of time so you can measure the value that you're getting out of it. All of those things need to be done up front, and take a really good hard look at, is this the right time for my company to bring in this tool? So this leads into the bit about integrations as well. Being clear on what integration means to your company and to all those involved, being sure that you're clear on what are the primary technologies that a CDP needs to integrate with. And again, they are those data sources primarily, and your delivery mechanisms, your ABMs, your maps, things like that. So, and then making sure that you're doing the change management that you need to ensure that the processes are supporting the technology and being supported by the technology. And these process changes and this data management really needs to come first. What you put into something is what you get out of it. And CDPs do a lot to help clean and clarify and dedupe, unify your data, but they're not a magic wand. So there is still a level of effort and understanding of your data management and of your data management processes that needs to be understood ahead of time, kind of as well as the delivery channels, how you're engaging with your demand team, all of those things that need to be put into place.
Yeah, that was great. So with that, I'm going to wrap this up. I want to thank everybody for coming today. And where you can go next, if you are looking for more information, is you can head over to leadspace.com to learn lots more about our solutions. You can also contact us to get a demonstration and learn more about what we can do for your specific scenarios, and to download the newest version of the Forrester Wave for B2B CDPs that has just come out for Q4 2021. So thank you, Katie, for joining me. It was a lot of fun. And thank you, everybody, for coming today.